What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast. We are not next to each other once again this week. Bruce traveling on some business. How you doing, man? How was your flight? How's everything out there on the West Coast?
Sucks. I want to be
Not
back in
enjoying
New
it?
York, but
You could have went to a Nuggets game or something. No?
dude. I was at Coors Field yesterday.
Oh, were you? Nice.
Yeah. There was an event there, so
Cool.
I was
Awesome.
there. It's an okay stadium.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of home runs in that stadium. One of the best hitters parks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because the air's thin as hell up here. Your boy is looking like Jeff doing a dunk right now, going up the stairs out here in Colorado. Man,
Just winded all the time. Yeah.
yo, those Denver home leans. I don't know how good they've been doing, but I feel it.
We lost last night. I faded them at home last night. They crushed the Kings. So unfortunately,
I mean, listen, man, I'm no NBA athlete, but I'm feeling it. So the altitude is real.
Nice.
But
all right, cool.
We got some good stuff. We got some college basketball today. We got some UFC. How we feel about last week? I know UFC. We hit none of them because one was canceled. And then we lost the other one. Although the card that went out, we went 2-1 on, so that was good.
The card profited. Yeah, that was good enough. Yep. We had a crazy college basketball Saturday last week, but then the rest of the week has just been like hit or miss. There was a couple of days we juiced out. There was one day where we had a losing day, but on Saturday we went 5-0 in college basketball. The one that I gave out on here was Wake Forest. Then we had Kentucky, we had UConn, and a few others. So we swept the card, but the rest of the week has been kind of like just chipping away back at those profits. So February is probably going to be it is going to be a red month for us. So we had December, January, green. And actually one of the things I could just quickly mention is like, it's really hard to win 3 months in a row doing this. Like the trend that I've noticed over the last couple of years is like 2-1, like 2 green, 1 red, 2 green, 1 red. 1 green, 1 red, and then 2 green, 1 red. And then by the end of the year, you've got like 4 reds and 8 greens, right? Which is great. Yeah. But those reds are in there. So,
well, you know what, Jeff? Don't you worry, because I'm going to put 27 units on UFC, and we're going to crush February.
We have 15 plays on a Saturday. Just on the UFC.
No, I'm joking. Don't do that.
Just kidding.
Manage your bankroll. We're not doing
Yeah. It's early in the year. We measure this by I know some guys will say like by weeks or like we had a great week or we had a bad. I measured this by months and years. So January was a green month. February is a red month, and we got 10 left. So we'll be good to go. But yeah, we'll talk some college basketball. Actually, we mentioned the Nuggets earlier. The NBA thing I wanted to just quickly touch on because we talked about the Clippers last week on the podcast. Then I made a short form for the Clippers. It's on TikTok and Instagram. Go check it out. But it's nothing against the Clippers, but it got some comments. Some people really like. I even posted a poll on Twitter, like, which one of these teams would you take right now? Surprising amount of people thought the Clippers can win the West. So I made that video just to like spread a little bit of knowledge. Like, so yeah, when you look at the advanced metrics, though, that's a good way to find value in the futures market. So a lot of people like the Clippers. So those comments saying, no, they can win. They got this. But it's nothing against them. It's just like, look at how they come out of the All-Star break. I don't know if you saw what happened last night, but they took a 19-point lead into the fourth quarter and lost the game by 4 points. And one of the things that I mentioned last week was specifically those fourth quarter clutch minutes with the old guys playing those heavy minutes is when they have the worst plus minus. And that's what happened last night. And that's what happened in their first game. So they've lost 2 out of 3 now coming out of the All-Star break. The one win was against the Grizzlies, who have like no roster. It's nobody left on that team. So, as you know, I'm not going to do a victory lap yet. It's only been there's a lot of time left, but I see what I was kind of anticipating. It's like they crumble in those late minutes because their old guys just get worn down. And that's going to be really, really tough when you got to win 4 7-game series or 3. You got to win 3 7-game series to win the West. That's going to be brutal on them. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that real quick. But
yeah, I mean, super starting lineup forward on that. And listen, my gamer tag is like Hustle Westbrook. All right, I'm a Russell Westbrook apologist for years. So I got players on there I like, but
he's good. I like Russell Westbrook. Yeah, but it's about the team.
You can't fade the advanced metrics on some of these things. It's like true. Age catches up to everybody. When we look at it in fighting, when we look at it across team sports, like
that's right.
Listen, there's one thing that never fails is that people get old and the wheels fall off. So you guys keep buying those Clipper future bets, and we'll keep fading them.
I like. There's a bunch of, even if you look at the Suns, but I mentioned the Wolves, the Thunder. There's a bunch of the Nuggets. The Nuggets probably just beat everyone up again, but there's a bunch of good options out there. I just think the number's off. The 250's off, but yeah, I mean, we'll talk more hoops now. I wanted to get into college real quick. I'll have a game breakdown. There's actually a bunch of huge games this weekend. There's only like 4 Saturdays left in the season. So we're going to have like these next few weeks are going to be massive games with teams like getting into the tournament, getting knocked out of the bubble, teams that are going to be sitting like, they can make it or they can not make it. So it's going to be interesting. But one of the things that's going to start coming up is system plays, because systems during the regular season, there's a couple of good ones, but they kind of ramp up during the tournaments. So starting with the conference tournaments and then going into the NCAA tournament. So the conference tournaments are up first. They'll begin right in the middle of March, I think around the 13th or the 14th. Right. And that's where you're going to start to see us go back. We haven't really bet many totals this year. We've been like mostly sides, but you're going to see us go back to those unders that everyone loves. So unders are big in football, right? In the NFL. Unders are big in college basketball situationally, specifically on neutral courts. So like all season long, we try to find these bounce back spots at home, right? Or these let down spots on the road or revenge angles. Now you just got to throw all that out the window, because every game starting with the conference tournaments is going to be held on a neutral court. There's no more home road splits. There's no more this team shoots this from 3 at home. It's all neutral. Yeah. So it's all, and I'll just give you guys the stats before I babble on, but last 5 years, 57% to the under on neutral court games when it's a conference game. So that's why I'm targeting the conference tournaments, which are starting in a couple of weeks. The numbers are 238 and 181. So 238 under, 181 over. That's 57%. The ROI is over 8% just for those games in just the conference tournaments. Then you look at the NCAA tournament, it goes up even higher, because remember, now when you get to the NCAA tournament, the games are still all neutral courts, but now these teams are starting to wind down from getting beat up in the conference tournaments, right? Because conference games in college basketball are like divisional games in the NFL. These are the teams that play each other twice a year. They know each other more so than they do some random team across the country, right? So these are the games that take a toll on them. So like that's why there's a system out there like fade a team after they get a big conference game win or whatever that the case may be. So like those games take a bigger toll. So then going into the NCAA tournament, it goes up higher. It goes from 57% to 59%. So you're like 217 and 159. The ROI bumps up to almost 10%. So this is one of those systems that you definitely got to keep in your back pocket. And in a couple of weeks, when all these tournament games start, you're going to see. And by the way, I should mention the criteria. There's really only one criteria: neutral court, and the total's got to be at least 139.5. That's the key. So anything below that, we just throw out. Right. And if you include those games below, by the way, this is like an interesting tidbit when you're building systems. If any of you out there are trying to do that, if you include the games below 139.5, it's still a profitable system, but it's just such a large volume of games, you can't realistically bet them all. Like you're not going to sit there on a Saturday and bet 87 unders, right? Like you're not going to do it.
You never know.
Yeah, I guess. But the reason why we just filter that out is it's like you filter, you go like 136, 137, 138 until you find a reasonable amount of games which still has that high end, like that 58%, 8% ROI. And the number that you land on is like 139.5, even 140, you could say. And that'll make it so that you're not betting this egregious amount of games. You're managing your bankroll, but also still reaping the rewards of the system. So that's kind of what that is. So
now, are there any games this weekend that match that system?
No, this weekend you got all home road games. So there's no neutral games yet. Neutral games will start when the conference tournaments start, which is, I think, the 13th or the 14th, whatever I mentioned earlier. That's when all these, so basically in 2 weeks, this is a system that you're going to need to start looking at. A ton of games are going to fit into this 2 weeks from today as we head into the weekend. So, but this weekend, though, you still have home road games. But one of the things, we could talk about also, one of the reasons why that system works, it's kind of self-explanatory, but teams just being out of their comfort zone, out of their element. And the other thing is that when you're playing a conference team, like I said earlier, the defense is a little bit better. They know you a little bit better. But also when you're playing a conference team on the road, you also know their arena. Like if you're a junior or even a sophomore or senior, you've been to that arena before. But in these games, there's no familiarity at all. You're playing on a completely neutral site. So the sight lines are different. The nerves, the anxiety is different. The defense ramps up, and it just all kind of like leads it. If you have a sharp line that's like 142.5, 143.5, all you need is 2-3 possessions to go south, and you land on 138, like versus 144. Like that's really the only. We're talking like the sliver, like the minimal sliver of edge that you need to make this work. So
I mean, and listen, with the experience of retail bettors now, with the amount of information that's out there in the world, that's all you get.
Exactly.
A lot of the time, you don't get these huge misses where it's like, oh my God, I have this crazy edge where it just like blows things out of the water. It's like sometimes it is just those 2 or 3 possessions on a neutral court that makes you a profitable bettor.
Did you see Billy Walters on Joe Rogan or no? Not yet.
Not yet. No,
okay, so I listened to the whole thing. I made a TikTok on it, but I listened to the whole thing, and he talks about one of the things. Rogan asked him what the biggest bet he ever hit was, and he said the Super Bowl between the Saints and the Colts, right? The one that Drew Brees won.
Yep.
So he said that line was -7 to Indianapolis, and he said he had the game as a pick. All right, so he said it was a 7-point mistake, and he won $4.5 million on it, right?
Yep.
But after the point though that it took away from the conversation was like, he doesn't find 7-point mistakes anymore. They're not there.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, so he was talking about how the edges change. He spends so much money every year on new handicappers that he employs, new systems, new modeling, because his edge constantly is being taken away.
Yeah.
So that like those big mistakes, like you just mentioned, with all the access to information now, how many people bet now, the popularity growing, those big mistakes are not going to be there for very long. They might have been there before. They're not really there anymore. These days, you find a 2-point difference in a line and you jump on it. So 7, imagine finding a 7, imagine finding what you think, what he perceives to be a 7-point mistake in a Super Bowl. Like, it's crazy. It doesn't even make any sense.
It's wild. And just, thinking through it, you have a lot of folks who play systems across like TikTok, YouTube, etc. And these things are sort of marketed as these perennial things. And like, I think one of the things that you especially do well across, the NFL, college hoops is, continually preaching that these systems are not forever. And it's like,
100%.
It's not that we don't want them to be forever. I would love to have just a system that I can just always plug in and win money. That would be great.
Yeah,
that would be a cash machine. Unfortunately, like Vegas is on the opposite side, trying to make sure that they get it right the next time.
Yeah.
And they have a ton of money, so these things are going to keep vanishing. The only thing that we can bank on is that, sports and trends do change. So you will end up finding small edges in places, but those things are temporary.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They die just like it's the life cycle of anything else. Systems have a life cycle or lifespan, I should say. And like a good example was the NFL. 2 years ago, short road underdogs killed it, and this year did not kill it. Right. So now it could bounce back next year, or that system could just be dead. Like one of the things you can look at is how many, right? So I haven't done this, but I bet if I go back 2 years ago, how many 2-point dogs were there in the NFL? Right, or 2.5, and then come back last year and say how many were there. I bet you there was a lot less. I bet you the books adjusted, and those teams were either favored, so you had to lay juice on them, or the line was below. Maybe it was a 1.5, and they lose by 2 or 3. Like, I bet you there was an adjustment there of some kind because that was a system that was working for several years in a row. So anyway, but yes, they do come and they go, they die, and new ones are born all the time. So
words.
But neutral court unders, definitely, that's one of my favorites, and it's been on a good run, 5 straight years in the green. And it's one of those that's a little bit more, totals are always a little bit more difficult for the books to adjust to because the numbers are much, the ranges are wider, more variance. They have it much tighter on sides. So this is one of the good ones, neutral court unders.
Yeah. And Army Navy unders, next college football season, that's going to be 14.5 next year. Yeah. It's like they're just going to keep going. All right. Well,
the only one that hit, you remember the last one? The only one that hit this past season was the one where the guy took a safety at the end of the game.
Yeah. Incredible, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Give us a game. Give us
a game. All right. Yeah. Let's dig into a game. All right. Let's look at. All right. So there's a lot of good games. I'll touch on a few, but the main one I'll say is arguably the best game of the weekend, Tennessee at Alabama. So this Tennessee is going to Alabama for this game. In their first, this is essentially what you look for, right, in a few of the systems that we like. So the revenge system in college basketball is very strong, meaning that conference game, like these two are both SEC teams, conference game where the road team is coming in and they won the first game at home. So Tennessee did not just win the first game at home. They embarrassed Alabama. They blew them out by over 20 points. Yep. All right, so this is a bounce-back spot for Alabama. Now, Ken Pom has Tennessee as the 5th best team. He has Alabama as the 7th best team. The difference is Tennessee's a much more balanced squad, right? They have a top 10 offense and defense. Bama is the number 1 offense, but they're down in like the top 75 or something in defense. They're not that great, but their defense is better at home. So combine that with the revenge angle, and at home they have by far, it's not even close, the number 1 offense in the country. Right now the look ahead is 2. Ken Pom has his predicted Alabama -2. I think that's a steal. I think that'll probably get bought up if it is 2. Similar to Wake Forest last week, right? When we do these on Thursday, we're recording on Thursday, so we look at the look ahead lines, and these lines are not available to us until Friday night. But Ken Pom's usually pretty spot on. Like he had Wake Forest +1. It opened +1, but they got bought to -2.
Yep.
So the Ken Pom's a great tool. If you guys don't use it, it's $20 for a year. I would if you bet college basketball, that's a no-brainer. You should be getting that. So if it's Bama -2, I would jump on it. I like that. I think it's playable all the way up to probably 4.5, 5. I'd probably cut myself off at 5 on that game. I think this is a huge. And last night they played Ole Miss on the road. They took care of them pretty easily. Tennessee last night played a very tough game against Auburn, which we had a brutal beat on. We had Auburn +7, and oh, you don't want to hear this. We had Auburn +7. They were up by 10 with about 9 minutes left, and they lose the game by 8. So Tennessee got kind of a lucky cover there. Now that they won that game, but it was a tough game, right? That's a physical, tough game. Auburn's a really good defensive team, so now they got to come out of that game an emotional win, a big home win to secure, they're going to either be a 1 or a 2 seed in the tournament. So keep them at the top. And then now they got to go to Bama, and Bama's waiting for them in this revenge spot. So I like Alabama this weekend. That would be, I think definitely if that line comes out and it's below, like I said, 4 or 5, we're going to be playing that. So I would look to play Alabama this weekend. And if you want to look at a couple other spots, Marquette is going to Creighton. They just blew out Providence last night at home. Easy win. Now they got to go to Creighton. It's -3. I would look at Creighton in that game, -3. That's a good look. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, your annual Gonzaga St. Mary's game. That's a West Coast game. One of the things that I thought was interesting. So tonight, which people will not see this until after this game's over probably, but Gonzaga plays San Francisco tonight. And Gonzaga had a weird start to their season, but the two teams they dominate, St. Mary's and San Francisco. Like every year, it's the same thing in that West Coast conference. It's like, oh, those are the 3 teams, St. Mary's, Gonzaga, and San Francisco. And then Gonzaga just always just blows them out of the water when it matters. Yep. Yeah, so they're only -3 on the road at St. Mary's. Look at that game. I would probably look to play Gonzaga in that one too. But my favorite spot as of right now, as we look ahead, is the Alabama spot against Tennessee. So that's the one I would look to play.
I like it.
Yes, sir.
Anything else in the college side that you're looking at this weekend, or should we hop over?
Well, I think we should hop over to try to keep this a little bit more concise. I've been trying to limit my ramblings. So,
people love it.
I can't wait, dude. I can't wait for what I really can't wait for is obviously the tournament. But these podcasts, we're gonna have some amazing stuff for you guys when the NBA playoffs start, because we play 0 NBA systems during the season. There's really none that work, but there are so many good ones in the playoffs. And last year, out of our NBA season, we got like most of our units in the playoffs. We were like, like slightly green all year, and then we got like all of our units in the playoffs because the systems are crazy. So That's going to be fun. But why don't we switch over to the combat stuff right now?
Yes. So this weekend,
and a little birdie told me that you have 3 picks today.
I have 3. Oh my God.
Oh, I lost your handsome face.
Okay, there we go. Okay,
back.
I'm back. Sorry, my arm is getting tired. I don't have an arm out here, so I'm literally like holding it. Yeah. I have the fight that everybody is talking about this weekend, which is Abdul Karim Al Sawadi versus Loik Radzhabov.
Of course, yes.
It's obviously gonna do numbers on the fight night points. No, yeah, we do have 3. We're gonna do mostly just value bets on this. There are like a few systems out there that are floating around in this card, but mostly I think there's just some under or overpriced fighters that are either coming off big wins, big losses, and we think that there's going to be value there. So nothing too sexy on the number side, but from the tape breakdown, I think we have some good stuff. So the first one that we will hit is, and I have a little note right here so I can make sure that I always pronounce the name right. Abdul Karim Al Sawadi at minus 175 against Loik Radzhabov plus 145. So Al Sawadi is a guy. You know what? How about this? Because we didn't talk about this before the thing. I want you to guess how many fighters with a winning record Al Sawadi has fought in his last 6 fights.
How many fighters with a winning record?
Yeah.
These are all UFC fights?
No.
Oh.
They're one contender fight, and then there's like some mixed in LFA and some other stuff.
But I assume if he's in the UFC now, he's good. So they must be putting up against other good guys. I'll say 5. 5 winning records out of 6.
1.
Okay.
1,
right.
And it was contender fight. So Al Sawadi had a pretty horrible like contender win. Like he didn't get a contract coming out of the contender series. They brought him on after that contender series fight, but he didn't get a contract for that fight that he put on. It was pretty terrible to watch fight. He did win by decision, but like it was kind of garbage.
Okay.
Prior to that, he's fought guys that are 12-12, 14-14, 8-8. I think the best record was like 6-4, and like being 500 in the NBA, not bad. Being 500 and getting like punched in the face is not great. Like like imagine like getting beat up just as much as you beat up. Like that sucks. That's not a good vibe for you as a professional. So like, and on the other side, Loik coming off a knockout loss to Mateusz Rebecki, who's undefeated in the UFC. He's a little tank. He's a monster. But Loik was getting him with some good leg kicks, some good striking in the first round before he got knocked down in the second. So I think there's just a lot of value here. Loik has fought the better guys across PFL. I think he was PFL, then Eagle FC. He did really well in Eagle FC, got himself back into, a major promotion in the UFC. So I really do think that he's going to have the experience, and he's fought the better competition. I think that Al Sawadi, I think his numbers are padded. And I think a lot of this is like Al Sawadi won his last one, coming in with a pretty clean record in his last 8. Loik coming in, a little bit of a mixed bag on his outcomes. But I think when you watch the fights, you can see that Loik is the better fighter. So if I'm getting the better fighter at plus 145, I'm going to take that value bet, right? Like there's not a whole lot of numbers backing this right now when it comes to like significant striking or a stylistic matchup. I also think that this is likely going to go to decision as well, right? So if you do like Al Sawadi, the Al Sawadi by decision is like plus money. I think it's like plus 165 right now. So if you do want to fade me on this, on the value bet and go at Al Sawadi, I would probably go by decision. I think there's going to be a mix of grappling, striking. These guys have a lot of decisions in their 5-on-in. So I will say that, like, if you do want to go on the favorite side, that you probably take up the decision prop. But we'll be going
Cool.
with Loic at plus 145 on this one.
All right, a live dog to start us off. So Loic at
They're
plus
all dogs, by the
145.
way.
They're all
They're
dogs.
all
Okay,
dogs.
gotcha.
I
Cool,
only
cool.
I only have I only have plus money bets on this one. So not the next one is not a dog, but the bet that we're gonna take is gonna be a plus money bet on them. So
Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So
Okay, cool. So Loic is the first one at plus 145. I like that. Okay, cool.
yes,
All right. So second one you said is not a dog, but you're
not
gonna
a
find a
dog.
way. You're gonna find a way
Yes,
to make
sir.
it plus money. All right.
We got an angle. So we got Alex Perez versus Muhammad Makayev. So Makayev is a pretty large favorite. I think he opened at like minus 260. I think he's into the 300s now. So his money line, there's like no value there anymore.
Yeah.
If you looking at the matchup, Muhammad Makayev is going to get a title shot very soon. Usually, how the UFC does it is they have you fight Alex Perez, and then when you beat Alex Perez, you get a title shot. That division is like, for whatever reason, extremely thin at the top. And Alex Perez seems to be like the litmus test on whether Sean Shelby gives you a title shot. It's like, go beat Alex Perez, and then we're gonna just juice you up the ranks. Mostly because like when you look at that division, there's not a lot of people that division is pretty thin at the top. So Makayev, obviously a submission specialist. He's an absolute animal on the ground. He's literally submitted all the best coming up the ranks. And Alex Perez submitted 5 times, submitted twice in his last 2 fights. So it's going to go to the ground. It's going to be a wrestling match. And Makayev is going to submit Alex Perez, right? So, like, we're looking at plus 145. If you're watching this video now, it's still plus 145. Go get it. I think that can get bought down even more, given how large the money line is and how likely the submission outcome is. I can see that getting down into the low 100s. But man, like, it couldn't be a better UFC math on this one. It's like
right. Guy
who's been submitted a ton versus guy who is submission specialist taking everybody's neck. This one, this one for me is my favorite bet of the week, and it's the
I love it
submission at plus 145.
I have by sub. Do you think there's anything to like? I'm just thinking about this right now. Popped in my head. Like, if you are a fighter who keeps getting subbed, right? Like, do you like? Is it one of those things where it's so difficult to stop it once a guy gets you, or is it just like, do you have a conscious like effort in the next fight? Like, I'm gonna try to avoid going to the mat, or is it just like once they get their claws on you, it's like, once they get their hooks in you, it's over kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a lot of folks. A lot of it is position, right? Like, there's certain things that you've been drilling for years that can leave you open. Like, for whatever reason, like Alex Perez, like shooting doubles, like leaves his neck open. A lot of fighters use their back, like turn their back to the fighter to get leverage to get up on the cage, right? And that is something that you drill a lot sometimes. Like, that's a very common way of getting back up off the cage. It's like you sort of turn in, give the fighter the back, but then you can generate enough force to sort of lean into the cage and stand up. But for great grapplers, it's like giving them your back is like a death wish. Like, they get a hook in, they take the back. But if that's like what you've been drilling for 8 years, it's hard to do the other thing, right? It's it's like that's your only move. It's like fighters have moves, right? And it's like the one that you drill is the one that you're going to use when you're in like a panic situation. Like, when it's like life or death, you sort of rely on your most reliable move, even if it's dangerous sometimes, right? So
that makes sense.
So when we're talking about fighting, a lot of the moves that people do are based on how reliable it is for them, right? Yes, there may be a better move out there to do in that situation, but if you don't know it and you haven't been drilling it, it's like you have to take that chance of like, it's almost like in the NBA, it's like maybe you catch a guy with a jab step and like, you could take him off the left dribble, or you can spot up shoot. but you know that your left dribble sucks ass. So even though the left dribble is the better move there, you take the spot up shot because you're just more comfortable with it.
Right.
Like same thing in fighting, right?
Gotcha.
Only the outcome is like missing a shot, and the outcome in the UFC is like getting choked unconscious. So it's like a much higher.
It's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, much higher stakes on it, but it's the same thing, right?
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, Makhayev's getting the stuff, guys.
So Makhachev by sub plus, and that was also plus 145.
Plus 145. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome.
And
got some value. And then honestly, oh, you were about to say for the last one?
Plus 140.
Oh, for the last fight. Okay.
Yeah, I'm keeping them all in the same range.
When you send me the show notes for the last fight, I cringed, but go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Also, before I go into this one, I also want to say, if you get Raul Rojas and Ricky Tercios on another card, which they will, because they were supposed to be on this card, and Rojas bailed again this weekend. Yeah. Sick again. So it's like, whenever that fight comes up, please just like bet the outside the distance and just have a good time. We'll cover it whenever it comes up. I was going to cover it today, but Rojas bailed again. So it's like, we're never going to get this fight. But when we do, it's going to be hot.
Did he use the same? Was it the same reasoning for the second? Was it still
the sniffles? I don't know. The altitude. All right. I don't know what it is.
Anyway, whatever.
Okay, now we're going to do a gross one. We're going to do Biggie Boy versus Shamil.
Okay.
Main card, headliner. We got Shamil, who's coming off a pretty impressive win in his last fight. We got good value on that one. We won that bet. And he's a high volume, powerful striker. He has some decent wrestling. He has a decent motor for a guy his size. And then you have Biggie Boy, who's gross. He has quite possibly the death touch in the heavyweight division, and he just chooses to like never throw a goddamn punch.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how
frustrating.
you have so much power in your hands and sometimes you just don't use it.
Yeah.
But whenever he does throw, he evaporates people. So it's like I almost bet on the potential of Biggie Boy rather than what I actually see in the ring, which makes this feel gross. But here's what I do see in the ring. I see Shamil never moving his head. My man's head is just on a post. And he caught some clean strikes in the first round of that last fight. It's just he fought a dude who's like a 6'8" Counter-Strike 2 player. Like he's like a video gamer who likes to use his size in wrestling. But if Biggie Boy touches Shamil like that, it's going to be lights out.
Okay.
So the fight flow here is going to be, Shamil has two options. He can strike and get knocked out, or he can use his wrestling. Biggie Boy over the last year has said that he's been drilling his wrestling, drilling his jiu-jitsu. I don't know how much I believe him, and I don't know how good he got, but it's been something that he's been consciously working on. I think if Shamil has a shot to win this fight, he's going to have to wrestle. Over 5 rounds, though, I think Biggie Boy catches him, man. I think it could happen in the first round. If he decides to strike with Biggie Boy in the first round, who's a great counter striker, who, if you leave yourself open, he's going to touch you. And you have Shamil, who really likes to push forward and throw a ton in combination, a ton with power. I think that this could be a very quick fight. And if Biggie Boy lets his hands fly and touches him early, we got a Biggie Boy dog.
He's just got to open it up. He's just got to go for it.
That's the thing, and that's something that Justin and I, who breaks down the UFC, that's something that we've been debating this week. So this is why I feel gross. It's like Justin is almost on the Shamil side on this one. So, but we both recognize that if Biggie Boy lets his hands go and is able to touch him, it's going to be a short fight. The question is Biggie Boy too tentative, looking for the wrestling defense versus putting his offense and letting Shamil sort of get ahead on that and then start working that wrestling in, then it's going to be a long, very frustrating fight where I'm going to be texting you saying, why did we put another bet on Rosenstrike?
Yeah.
Why'd we do it again?
Yeah. Because he's burned us. He burned us a couple times in that frustrating way of just like standing there waiting, and you're like, come on, man.
Right. And then there's other times where he comes out and he just like blitzes the guy.
Yes.
He kills him, and we're like, easy.
Yeah.
Biggie Boy's back.
But it sounds like in terms of the matchup with the way Shamil's going to look to fight, it sounds like this could be one of those where he has somebody who's aggressive enough where he can open up and pick his spots.
I think so. I don't think like Shamil's not going to be skirting around the outside of the ring and like
right.
It's either going to be a knockout or Shamil's going to be wrestling this guy to death, and it's going to be so painful that I expect comments on the the bottom of this video saying why'd you do it. But cool. But I do like the value at plus 140 for a guy that we think was going to fight for the title, and then Shamil fought like one dude that's like just barely ranked.
And that was his debut, right? So he's on one. Yeah. He's one fight in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, undefeated, but one fight in, fought a guy that's barely ranked. And Biggie Boys fought the who's who of the division. So I like it, especially when you're getting him at plus money. Just like
true.
Take the value bet there. You got a murderer who's like, well, not a literal murderer, guys, but like you guys got somebody with the death touch at plus 140. Just take the value. Well,
if you're gonna buy low, you want to get plus money most of the time. So that makes sense.
100%.
All right, so all three were in that plus 140 to 145 range, right? So you had Loic, you had Makaev by sub, and Rosenstrike straight up plus 140. 3 UFC bangers for this weekend. Also have Alabama. Look to play that if that line comes out. So you got 4. We gave you guys 4 spots that you can look at this weekend. And hopefully we win them again. So that's all I had for this show, man. What about you? Anything else? Or you're just looking to get back home?
I'm just looking to get out of this. Not necessarily.
Yeah, no. Shout out to Denver, all our loving subscribers out there. So
love it out
yeah, all good. All right, guys. We will see you next week as we go into the weekend. Best of luck with your bets. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Later.